Welcome to Mission to Inspire, where we share life experiences in our careers, personal lives, society, culture, religion, finance, family, and much more. Meet your host, Shola Ajibade, as she takes you on a ride to fuel your inspiration.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mission to Inspire. My name is Shola, and please meet our wonderful guest here with us today. His name is Brenden. Hi, Brenden. How are you?
Life is a gift, Shola. I'm doing great. How about you?
I'm doing great as well. So, introducing Brenden is a visionary behind MasterTalk. It's an esteemed platform dedicated to honing communication skills for executives and entrepreneurs aiming to excel in their respective fields. So I'm going to leave it at that because I want him to talk more about what he does in terms of communication. He also has a YouTube channel, so he's going to tell us a little bit more about his YouTube channel and the tools on there for us to use for our communication skills. But before we get into the questions, Brenden, we're going to ask you few this or that questions just to know you better. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Of course, it's totally fine.
Okay, great. So I know you are good at communicating and presenting. You're a keynote speaker. So my first question is, do you prefer building rapport or getting straight to the point?
Building rapport or getting straight to the point?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously both are important, but I had to pick probably getting straight to the point. I'm pretty efficient.
Really? Okay, great. All right, the next one is using visual aids or relying solely on spoken words.
Solely on spoken words, because there's going to be moments in your life where you won't have those visual aids. You need to be ready for those moments.
That reminds me of when COVID hit. We had to rely on the visual aids, didn't we?
Awesome. Love that.
Yeah. Adjusting communication styles based on the audience or maintaining a consistent approach?
I'm a much bigger fan of adapting to the audience we're speaking to, for sure.
That's true. That's true. Eye contact or gesture for emphasis?
I think eye contact is more important just because people make more mistakes in eye contact than with body language.
Ah, okay. Active listening or assertive speaking?
I mean, they're obviously both important. You need both in the world, but obviously I would, if I had to pick one, probably assertive speaking.
Assertive speaking. Okay, great. Thank you so much. So we know you better now. We know how to describe you better now through those questions that you've answered. Thank you so much. So we're going straight into the question. And our first question is, what actually inspired you to create MasterTalk and help others improve their communication skills?
For sure, Shola. So for me, the story started when I was in college. I went to business school, and my dream was to become an accountant, funny enough. So that's what I studied in. I was a numbers guy. And then as I got older, I found a love for communication because I started competing in these things called case competitions. Think of it like professional sports, but for nerds. So while other guys my age were playing rugby or basketball or baseball, I wasn't really one of those guys.
Right.
I did presentations competitively. That's how I learned how to speak. And then as I got older, I started coaching a bunch of students on how to communicate just to help them win competitions. And I accidentally developed a talent in coaching other people on how to speak. So I started making YouTube videos in my mom's basement, called it MasterTalk. And then a few years later, it turned to what it is.
Ah, wow. Great. Okay. So you're a born communicator, basically.
I wouldn't say I'm a born communicator. Like, I struggled speaking most of my life. Actually, I have a crooked left arm. I have a disability in my left arm, so it's crooked. I spoke my whole life in a second language because I live in Montreal, so you need to know how to speak French, which is a language I did not know. So I'm fluent in it today, but when I was studying, I had to present. So I struggled a lot. That's why I'm a big believer that anyone can be a great speaker.
Ah, well done, you. You've achieved so much.
Thanks, Shola.
Yeah. So your YouTube channel, what made you decide to start that channel? And I know you provide free communication tools to everyone as well. So what's the motivation?
Yeah, I think the motivation primarily was doing something important with my life. So
Right.
for me, I wanted to do something important. And yeah, sure, I had a great corporate job. I was making good money, but I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to do something that lived beyond me. And I think I realized that I had a really unique talent in speaking. And what I also realized is everybody who has the same skill set as me, not a
Yeah.
lot of them share their advice for free online. So
Okay.
that's what really pushed me to start MasterTalk, because took a step back and realized that no one's really sharing this advice for free. So
Mm-hmm.
I just started making videos for my local competition teams that I was coaching, because I didn't
Okay.
have time to coach them anymore because I
Mm.
was working at IBM full time as a consultant. So that's really what started the channel. It's just 2 listeners turned to 12, then it turned to 24, and then it just kept doubling over time. And now it's, a little bit bigger than where I started for sure.
Wow. That is so impressive. For those of us that would like to contact you, how can we contact you?
Yeah, for sure, Shola. So the easiest way to do this is to attend one of my free trainings. So I actually do a free communication workshop over Zoom that's
Okay.
live that I
Mhm.
facilitate. And if you want to jump in on that, you don't need to be an executive. You could be a 7-year-old girl. You could be a big CEO. It doesn't matter. Go to
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
rockstarcommunicator.com and just go to that website and register for one of our free workshops and just come to that.
Oh, great. So, viewers, that will be in the description and the show notes anyway, so you would have access. Thank you for that, Brenden. Um, so how do you coach ambitious executives and entrepreneurs to become top 1% communication? Or communicators, because that's what you do.
Absolutely, Shola, for sure. So for me, communication is like juggling 18 balls at the same time, right? So one of them is body language, one of them is facial expressions, one of them is storytelling, and the list goes on. So for me, the question has always been, what are the 3 easiest balls to juggle? Because
Right.
if we can juggle those 3, we
Mm-hmm.
can easily improve our speaking. So let's start with number 1. And if
Yeah.
you want me to share the other 2, I'm happy to. But the first one is the random word exercise. You pick a word like phone, like
Mm-hmm.
light bulb, like tissue box. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know why the sound came out. Right, like tissue box,
Yeah.
right? Like light bulb, and you create random presentations out of thin air.
Mm-hmm.
And the key here is if you could make sense out of nonsense, you could make sense out of anything, Shola. And that's really what I recommend people do 5 minutes a day, 5 times a day.
Oh, wow. That is very interesting. Can you share the other two then quickly?
Of course, happy to. So the second one is the question drill. We get asked questions all the time in our life, Shola, but
Mm-hmm.
we're not ready for the questions that life has in store for us. So an example would be this podcast, and I started guesting on podcasts maybe
Mm-hmm.
3, 4 years ago. I was really bad at this. I
Mm-hmm.
remember some guy asked me, Shola, hey, Brenden, where does the fear of communication come from? And I looked at the guy and I said, I don't know, man. Los Angeles, Tampa, you tell me. I don't know.
Mm.
So how did I fix this, Shola?
Yeah.
Every single day for 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I answered one question that I thought the world would ask me about my expertise, my products, or my services. So day 1 was, what's your vision for Master? Day 2 is, what tips do you have for introverts on how to speak? Day 3 was, how do you present in a second language? But if you do that once a day for a year, Shola,
Yeah.
you'll have answered 365 questions about your industry, and you'll be bulletproof. And then the last exercise is birthday video messages. So one thing I do on my Google Calendar, which is right here on my screen here, is
Yeah.
I make a list of all my business partners, all my clients, all my best friends, and Google Calendar tells me whose birthday it is that day. So
Mm-hmm.
when it's their birthday, I put my $12 birthday hat on that I bought from Amazon. I open my phone and I send them a birthday video message by saying something like, hey, Shola, guess whose birthday it is? Oh, wait a second. It's yours. I hope you have a wonderful day and a wonderful birthday. So I do
Oh
that like
my
maybe 100
goodness.
times a year. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. That is so interesting. So you do that for every client of yours, send them a video message on their birthday.
That's correct. Yeah. Which
Wow.
actually isn't that hard to do because I never retake the video. So it
Mm-hmm.
only takes 30 seconds. So if I'm sending 3 videos a day,
Yeah.
that's literally taking 2 minutes of my life, maybe 5 minutes if I'm getting
Maybe
lazy in the middle.
yes, yeah.
And if you do 2, 3, 4 every day for a year,
Mhm.
you'll have sent like over 1,000 videos.
Oh, wow. That's something great. I've learned something new today. Actually, 3 new things I've learned today.
That's great.
Okay, then in your experience, what are the most important non-verbal cues to pay attention to during conversations?
For sure. For me, when it comes to nonverbal, Shola, it's a great question. For me, most of my focus is on the face. So what I'm looking at is 2 main areas of the face. The first one is the eye contact. So when you're talking to somebody, if you feel they're doing this a lot, they're looking around the room, it means they don't really have an interest in talking to you, so just move on from that conversation. Versus if their eye contact is near your body, like near your eyes, your mouth, your forehead, if it's in that area, it means they have an interest. That's one piece. Eye contact I look at a lot. Other piece is smiling. That when people are talking. Actually, there's 3 things, so I'll comment on something else as well. So they're smiling. If they look really like pissed off all the time, you kind of want to get away from those people. Versus the vibrant and like you have a lot of vibrance, right? Like energy, positive, smile. So you know that person's nice to talk to. Versus if they look like this all the time, then you want to kind of walk away from them. The third one isn't really non-verbal; it's more verbal, but it's the voice projection.
Right.
So if somebody's really loud, you know they're more extroverted, versus if somebody's really quiet, you know they're really shy. So what you want to do as a speaker is you're supposed to adapt to the other person's tone. So you're a little bit more extroverted. You'll notice in the show I've increased my volume, but if you were very shy, I would talk to you like this the whole interview. So I'm always adapting based on the person I'm interviewed by, and that's it.
Oh, thank you so much. Wow, so interesting. I've actually learned some key points here. I've learned so much just from these few answers that you gave to our questions. But anyway, I'm going to move to the next one, and then I can ask you all the questions that is actually boiling in me at the end. So, what are your common communication challenges people face, and how can they overcome them?
For sure, Shola. A lot of people think the number 1 challenge of communication is fear, and I actually disagree with that. I think it's motivation. I think fear is number 2. And I'll explain it really quickly as to why. There's so many things we're scared of in our life. Getting a job, asking somebody on a date, having children, getting married, moving to a new country. We're not doing this with a full smile in our face. We're starting a business, starting a YouTube channel. It's really scary. So why do we do it anyways? Despite the fear, we do it because the incentive of doing it is greater than the fear it's associated with. Example, are we scared to get a job? Yes, but we're more scared of being broke. So we do it anyways. Are we scared of asking somebody on a date? Absolutely. But are we scared of being alone? Probably a lot more than asking someone on a date. Eventually, not when you're young, when you get older, which I'm still not at yet. Then you get a little scary, and then you're like, okay, now it's time to figure this out. But we don't apply the same analogy, Shola, to communication. We just go, oh, I'm scared, so I'm not going to do it. That doesn't make any sense. The real issue is we don't have a reason to do it. What's the motivation? That's why the question I always ask people, whether it's clients or on the show, it's how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? If I made you an exceptional 10 out of 10 speaker, how would your world change? And for all of us, the answer will be different.
Right.
For some of us, it'll be, I want to grow my business. For others, I want to grow my podcast. For others, I want to grow my career. But it's also growing as a parent, growing as a friend, growing as a human being, making new friends. So finding that reason is really helpful.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that would I'll ask this one question because you've actually pointed at those who are introverts and how you can communicate with them. So what advice would you give to people like that to be more confident and proficient in their communication skills?
For sure, Shola. So the advice is the same, right? Do the random word exercise, do the question drill, do the video messages. Just don't judge yourself as you're communicating. But there's a caveat that I'll add for introverts, which is introverts are not aware, Shola, that there's 3 things they actually do way better than extroverts at when it comes to speaking.
Right.
So the first one is pausing. Introverts live in silence. So it's easier for them to take a
Okay.
breath, to take a pause whenever they're sharing ideas with people. That's number one. Number two is listening. Introverts talk less, so they'll listen more, right? They're a lot better at effective communication and listening to other people. Whereas me, I'm a great guest on a podcast. I'm a horrible host. I love talking, right? So for me, if I take a pause, I'm not that great at listening. So I'm not talented there. So I need to work on that. And then number three is beyond the listening and the pausing. The third one's accessibility. So accessibility means that if you're Gary Vaynerchuk, the CEO of VaynerMedia, you either really love the guy or you don't. So you either say, this guy's amazing, I love the impact he's creating, I watch all of his videos, which is me, I'm a big fan, or you're the opposite. I hate this guy, he's horrible, I'm never going to put my children in front of his videos, he's always swearing every 10 seconds, but there's no in between. So when you're extroverted, Shola, you're polarizing. Whereas when you're Brene Brown, nobody says, I hate Brene Brown. If you say that, you go to jail, you know, the FBI is going to come after you, the CIA is going to come after you. Obviously, I'm kidding, that's such a joke. But the point is that when you're more introverted, you're more accessible. So the advice then becomes triple down on your strengths and keep playing.
And keep playing. What's a tremendous advice there. Thank you so much. So what are some of the resources or tools you would recommend for those looking to enhance their communication skills?
I think the most important one is to book 15 minutes in your calendar to do the easy threes every day. So here's the problem, Shola, with a lot of people listening to podcasts. I call this meters, miles, and marathons.
Okay.
Are you running meters, miles, or marathons with the ideas that somebody's sharing on a podcast? What do I mean by this?
Right.
So somebody who's running meters is listening to a show and going, you know, kind of listening to it passively in the car. Maybe they're cooking, they're not really taking any notes, and then they forget the podcast. Somebody who runs miles with their ideas that are being shared in the world, they'll listen to the podcast, they'll take some notes, and then they'll do some of the exercises, maybe 4 or 5 times, and then they'll forget about the knowledge.
Forget about it, yeah.
And then you have person number 3.
Right.
The person who runs marathons with the ideas that they're being shared with the world. What does that mean? That means they listen to the episode, they take a bunch of notes, they implement everything. They might even book 30 minutes after the show is done and reflect. How do I implement this knowledge? So with the random word exercise, they'll tell their friends, they'll tell their husbands, they'll tell their spouses, they'll tell their nieces, their nephews, they'll do it in the shower, and they'll run marathons with the ideas. So the question I want people to think about, Shola, is as you're listening to this podcast, are you running meters, miles, or marathons with the ideas that life is providing you? So for you, what that now looks like is book 15 minutes in your calendar every single day to do the exercise, do the random word exercise 5 times a day, do 5 questions, question drill, send a few birthday video messages to people whose birthday it was last week. It doesn't matter. Just send videos. And that's the advice.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. How do we stay motivated then and continually improve our communication skills? You are very motivated, Brenden, from all the answers. But how do we stay motivated?
Right. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this, Shola, right? And it depends on who you are. So what some people do, kind of like with fitness, is they don't rely on themselves, they hire a coach. Because if you have a fitness coach or a communication coach like me, you don't have any choice, right? Like my average client is going to do the random word exercise 100 times in 3 weeks because I'm the accountability partner. So that's number one. But if you can't afford a coach, what that looks like is signing up for a Toastmasters group, right? Toastmasters is a great organization. It's like $200 a year. It's not expensive at all. And you can meet other people and share what we learned. Hey, Brenden and Shola taught me the random word exercise. Let's do this with the Toastmasters group. Brenden taught us the question drill. Hey, let's do this with the Toastmasters group. That's number 2. Number 3, which also works really well, is to make your family your accountability group. So what I get a lot of clients to do who have children or who have nieces or nephews, I go, don't even make this a chore. Think of it like a game. Give your 7-year-old kid, give your 13-year-old nephew the random word exercise and then practice with them.
Right. Wow. 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 It sounds so easy. But hey, yes, we'll try and practice, isn't it? We'll try and practice it. So lastly, can you share some tips for those listening to us today?
Absolutely, Shola. I think the last tip I'd leave people with is, how would your life change if you were an exceptional communicator? You know, a lot of people hear that question going back to motivation, but they won't take 10 to 15 minutes to actually write out their answers to that question, to actually reflect on what their answer is. And I encourage all of you listening to this to do that, because communication, as I call it, is the accelerant of dreams. It doesn't matter what the goal is. It doesn't matter what you're trying to do in your life. Whether your goal is to be a billionaire, whether your goal is to be a better mom, whether your goal is to travel and meet strangers in different countries, communication accelerates anything you want to do in your life. So I encourage you to be exceptional at it.
Wow. So all we need to do is practice all the tips you've shared with us today and try to excel at it. Basically, that's just it.
That's pretty much it. You got it, Shola. The best way to speak is to speak. Like, the reason I can communicate well is because I've been a guest on 500 podcasts. It's not because Brenden's special. It's not because Brenden's cool. It's because Brenden's answered the same question over and over and over again, that it's impossible to make mistakes.
Bravo. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much. Oh my God. And thank you for coming on our show. We benefited from, all your tips, your advice. Thank you so much. Thank you.
It's my pleasure, Shola.
And until next time, it's Shola and Brenden on mission to inspire. And we hope that we've really inspired you today to be great communicators, 𝐥𝐤𝐤 communicators. And if you need help, please go for Brenden. Contact him. I'll share his website and social media platforms in the description so you can contact him. Thank you so much for coming on our show today. And until next time, it's goodbye.
Thank you for joining us today on Mission to Inspire. Subscribe if you have not already done so. Like, comment, leave a message. Let's stay connected. Let's jointly inspire the world.